Netflix spent $50 million making Narcos series, but they changed one key detail that changes everything. Pablo Escobar's true net worth was estimated to be around $30 billion at its peak, not the $20 billion the show claimed. In 2015, the world was captivated by Narcos series, a show that took viewers inside the life of Pablo Escobar, the infamous Colombian drug lord. With over 100 million viewers, Narcos series became one of the most watched shows on Netflix, and its portrayal of Escobar's life and reign as the leader of the Medellin cartel kept audiences on the edge of their seats. But what really happened during those tumultuous years in Colombia? The Narcos series showed the world a dramatized version of Escobar's life, but the real story is far more complex and intriguing. By 1989, the show's success had sparked a global conversation about the war on drugs, with many questioning the true events that Narcos series depicted. In 1949, Pablo Escobar was born in Rio Negro, Colombia, to Abel de Jesus Dari Escobar and Hermilda Gaviria. Growing up in a modest home, Escobar's family struggled to make ends meet, with his father working as a farmer and his mother as a schoolteacher. By the age of 12, in 1961, Escobar was already involved in small-time crime, selling stolen cars and other illicit goods on the streets of Medellin. In 1976, at the age of 27, Escobar married Maria Victoria Henao, and they had 2 children together, Juan Pablo and Manuela. Throughout the 1970s, Escobar helped establish the Medellin cartel, and by the mid-1980s, his cartel dominated the drug trade, pulling in $420 million a week. As the leader of the cartel, Escobar's wealth and influence grew exponentially, with his estimated net worth reaching $30 billion at its peak. In 1982, Escobar was elected to the Colombian Congress, further solidifying his power and influence in the country. In 1985, the Medellin cartel was at the height of its power, with Escobar's empire stretching from Colombia to the United States. Narcos series accurately depicted the cartel's brutal tactics, including the murder of Colombian politician Luis Carlos Galán in 1989. However, the show also took creative liberties with Escobar's life, particularly in Season 1. As Juan Pablo Escobar wrote in his book Pablo Escobar, My Father, in 2016, his father's true personality and relationships were far more complex than the show portrayed. In a 1987 interview, Escobar himself stated, "I'm not a criminal, I'm a businessman." By 1991, the U.S. and Colombian governments had launched a joint effort to capture Escobar, and on July 9, 1992, he escaped from prison. In 1993, Escobar was killed in a shootout with Colombian police, marking the end of an era for the Medellin cartel. As the show Narcos series highlighted, Escobar's life was marked by violence and extravagance, with his private zoo and collection of exotic animals, including a herd of hippos, becoming a symbol of his wealth and power. By the time of his death, Escobar's empire had been largely dismantled, but the legacy of his cartel continued to shape the world of organized crime. One fact that Narcos series completely left out was Escobar's preference for younger women, with some reports suggesting he had relationships with girls as young as 14. In 1988, Escobar's son Juan Pablo received a Ferrari Testarossa valued at over $565,000 for his 14th birthday, despite the family sometimes struggling to afford basic necessities. The show also failed to mention the full extent of Escobar's philanthropy, including the 84 football fields he built for the poor in Medellin. In 1985, Escobar's cartel was responsible for the murder of over 200 police officers in Colombia, a fact that Narcos series barely touched on. By 1992, the Colombian government had launched a major crackdown on the cartel, and many of Escobar's top lieutenants had been killed or captured. In Narcos series, they showed Escobar's death as a dramatic showdown with Colombian police. In reality, Escobar was killed in a rooftop shootout on December 1, 1993, after being tracked down by a special task force. The show also portrayed Escobar's relationship with his wife Maria Victoria as more dramatic than it actually was, with some reports suggesting the two had a more pragmatic and less romantic relationship. In Narcos series, they depicted Escobar's private zoo as a symbol of his excess, but in reality, the zoo was a popular tourist attraction in Colombia, with many locals visiting to see the exotic animals. As the show highlighted, Escobar's life was marked by a stark contrast between his wealth and the poverty and violence that his family often experienced. In the years following Escobar's death, the Medellin cartel was dismantled, and many of its top leaders were killed or captured. Today, Juan Pablo Escobar is a successful architect and writer, and has spoken publicly about the challenges of growing up as the son of a notorious drug lord. As we look back on the life and legacy of Pablo Escobar, one question remains: what would have happened if Escobar had been captured alive and brought to trial? Follow Dark Crime Decoded for more real stories behind your favorite crime series, including the true story of the Cali cartel, which will be explored in our next video.